Mohammed, and in my channel I'll be summarizing books for you, giving so much details. And it's not only summarizing, I'll be going, like, I'll tell you the whole detailed story with information about characters and everything at the end, so you can get brief summaries. And the first book I'll be doing in my channel is The Hunger Games by Suzanne Collins. The first book is 374 pages, and it's part of a 5-part series. So to begin, the setting is it's basically in the future and the past, because they have futuristic stuff, but everyone who lives there is poor except for people who run the government. So the government people, they're called the capital. That's where they live, where rich people live and everything. And the whole union is called Panem. That it involves 12 districts, and each district have its own purpose. And in this book, the districts went out of line, and they started a revolution going against the capital because they take everything. They don't care if you're hungry or anything in districts. And they started a revolution, and they started fighting against the capital and making sure that they give them food. But what the capital did instead, because the capital, of course, won the war, what they did was they created the Hunger Games, which is each district sends one female tribute and one male tribute to an arena each year to fight to the death, and the last person standing is the winner. And so that's basically the Hunger Games. And basically how you get chosen is there's a bowl, and you put your name in each year, one time each year. Unless you want extra money or food, you can put in your names, and you can put your name another time that year, so you can put it in twice to get some food. And then at the end of the year, they pick out a name out of the bowl, 2 bowls, since one for females, one for males, and then they go to the Hunger Games. But you can also volunteer, so if someone's names get called, like a friend, family, anything, you can volunteer for them and go into the Hunger Games yourself, which usually District 1 and District 2 usually do that because they love the Hunger Games. They love fighting, because their whole district is about fighting and everything. But in the Hunger Games, 16-year-old Katniss Everdeen, she lives with her sister, Primrose Everdeen, and her mother, Miss Everdeen. Her father died in a coal mining accident, that his factory was blown up, and he died in the factory. So basically she signs up every year at least 3 times for food and money, because her family is super poor. And she also goes hunting for like to trade at the harbor. But like it's illegal because you're not supposed to go out of your district's line, but like she does. And so it's supposed to be illegal, but nobody notices. And people who are trading with her, they don't really care because they just want food. And so they wouldn't like tell the peacekeepers, which are basically like cops in Panem. And her sister, Primrose Everdeen, is a 12-year-old girl. This is her first year of the Hunger Games, so she only has her name 1 time in the bowl. And she's scared, like she's super scared of getting picked. And Katniss reassures her that, oh no, you won't get picked because it's your first year and you only have your name once, unlike Katniss, who has her name 20 times. And Mrs. Everdeen, she's going through something because of the father that he died. So he basically like broke her down, and she like doesn't do anything. And Katniss doesn't trust her mother with Prim, so she doesn't let her near her at all, and she doesn't let her deal with her anyway. And so it's a reaping day, which is where the tributes get chosen, and she goes to the tribute place, and you have to get your finger pricked for like blood, so they know who you are and not pretend you're like imposing someone. And Katniss Everdeen, she goes, and her sister is terrified because she can't see blood at all or anything dead. And she goes to the reaping with her sister Katniss, and the names get called, and the girl tribute that year is from Effie Trinket, which is Effie Trinket is the person who calls out the name from the bowl and picks it. and the female tribute is Primrose Everdeen. And Katniss goes, like, she gets shocked and Prim starts crying. And then Katniss does the unthinkable and she volunteers for Prim. And then Prim yells at her, screaming her name, saying, "No, don't." And then Gale, Katniss's best friend, he's 18 years old, he takes Prim away, and Katniss goes up on the stage and she tells everyone her name because Effie doesn't know anyone's name. And then Effie says, "That must have been your sister because she volunteered." And then Effie goes to the next bowl, and then she pulls a name out for the boy section, and Peter Millark, which is he's a son of the baker. He's in charge of decorating cakes in the bakery. And so he gets picked, and then he goes on stage. No one volunteers for him because he has two brothers. One is too old to volunteer, and one doesn't want to volunteer for him. He doesn't want to sacrifice his life. And so they go on a train to go to the Capitol. But before that, actually, they go into a room and to like rest and like talk with their families for 3 minutes because the peacekeepers don't care. And so first Katniss talks to Prim, who goes and hugs her, and then Miss Everdeen, she yells at her mother to like take care of Prim because she never took care of her, and she yells at her and tells her like to do it. And then after they take them away, and then she's not finished, and then Gale comes in, which is her best friend, who's 18, and now he's too old to be part of the Hunger Games. And they hug and everything. There's no romantic with her and Gale, it's just friendship. And then after that, they go to a carriage to the train that's gonna take them to the Capitol, and in the Capitol they're gonna be trained and everything. But like on the way, they meet their mentor, Hamish Abernathy, which is their mentor, which is the victor of 12, the only known victor in 12, and he has to mentor them. He has to train them. He has to make sure like he gives them stuff when they're in the arena. He provides sponsors, and he gives them stuff when they're needed. And Katniss, she doesn't really like Haymitch at first because he's drunk all the time. And Peeta, he's trying to get into the good side of Haymitch, and Katniss thinks Peeta's trying to like run her out and trying to because she thinks he wants to kill her. But really he sort of doesn't, but she thinks that way because it's the Hunger Games, everyone dies. When they get to the Capitol, they have the living quarters where they live and for like temporary before they go into the Hunger Games, and she meets her stylists, which Octavia, Flavius, and Vernia, and they have to style her and get her prepped to like go into costume and makeup. And her real stylist is Cinna. He's caring. She likes him. She doesn't really like him at first, but then they really get attached and they bond. And then in the district, what you have to do in Capitol, you have to do an interview with Caesar Flickerman, who's like basically like the show guy. He's the interviewer, and each district has to do an interview. And when it's Katniss's turn, what she does, her stylist has made her to the point where she's like the girl on fire. Her outfit is like based on fire instead of coal because that's what her district comes from. And what she does at the end of her interview with Caesar, because she's super shy, but she twirls and her dress catches on fire because Cinna wanted to make an impression that, oh, she's the girl on fire, so people will be scared of her and obnoxious. And it sort of works. The Capitol loves her. And Peeta, in the interview, he tells Caesar that he's in love with Katniss, and Katniss gets enraged at the end, and she pins him to the floor, and she gets mad at him and tells him and asks him, "Why do you make me look weak?" And then and they get like distant and all that, even though they weren't that close at first, but they like get more distant. And each day what they do, they train, like they use like axes, bow and arrows, and all that crazy like weaponry and some like just survival skills, like how to make a fire and stuff each day. And Katniss is always attracted to the bow and arrows, but Haymitch told them not to show your real skill unless you're with just the game makers. Because there's a day where you show the game makers your skill by yourself. And so they agree, and Katniss does everything. She throws knives and does anything but bow and arrows, which he's really good with. And Peeta, he's a baker, but he can like carry 100-pound sack of flour over his head. And so the careers, which is District 1 and District 2, they combine together to make an alliance. They always make fun of him because he couldn't like throw anything because he's like a baker. And at the end, Katniss tells him, show them your skill. We don't care what Haymitch says. And he throws the 100-pound like ball thing, and they all get amazed and they want him on their team. And when it comes down to the interview, Katniss, she's the last one, so she's District 12, so she'll be the last district to go. And so she goes last but not least, and what she does, so at first she fires an arrow, but she misses the target completely, and the head game makers start laughing, or the game makers start laughing, and they start looking away because there's like a roasted pig that had came, and then she hits an arrow, and then she hits the bullseye on the target, and then she looks to see if they approved, but they weren't watching her. They were all focused on the pig, and like here's a detail that the pig has a little apple in its mouth. So what she does is she takes an arrow and she fires the arrow at the pig's head, and she hits the apple and it flies to the wall, and that gets all of the game maker's attention, especially Seneca Crane, which is the head game maker. And basically after all those like interview sort of stuff to show your skill, they on live TV they give a rating like at least 0 to 12 at how good you did. And since Katniss is the last district, she goes last. Peeta gets an 8. Effie gets super mad at Katniss because she thought, oh, why would you hit the game makers? And Haymitch just likes it because he's drunk, so he doesn't know anything. And Cinna just nods. But Katniss actually gets a score of 11 because they want everyone to target her, and because Seneca Crane really likes her, but President Snow doesn't. And so, like, hold on to that information, and later on you'll see why. And so it's the day of the games, and she has to get prepped by Cinna. They talk, he hugs her, and she goes into the arena, and then there's a countdown, and in the middle of the arena, they have a circle, and all of the tributes make a circle on a pedestal, and then there's in the middle of them is a cornucopia. It's a big metal, like if you think of like cornucopias on Thanksgiving, it's basically like that, except it's gray metal and it's sort of like box shaped. And when you go, there's weapons all around it, food, water, backpacks with supplies. But Haymitch told them before, don't go there because it's a bloodbath. People die like immediately there. And so they take his advice. Peeta and Katniss take his advice. They go separate ways, of course, but they run and they don't go to the cornucopia, where 11 tributes die in the first night because of the cornucopia, the bloodbath. And the second night, Katniss manages to grab like a bag of supplies that has like all types of like a water bottle, everything not everything, but most things you need, and also rope. And so what she does is she goes into a tree, and then she hides, and she just like straps herself to the tree so she can sleep and no one can attack her and no one knows she's there. And then she goes, and then she goes up, and then she goes hunting for a while to gather food, because there's no source of food. They don't give you food. You have to go scavenge for the food. And on each night, they show the dead tributes in the sky. They put a picture in their district, and they show the fallen tributes who have died. And in the middle of the night, she hears a girl's voice scream, and she looks down to see the careers, along with Peeta. They've killed her, and they're scavenging, trying to find Katniss herself, because they're following Peeta's basic words, even though, and Katniss thinks he sided with them. He thinks she's like, if he loves me, why is he doing that? And after what she does is she goes, hides in another tree farther away, and they find her, but they can't climb the tree because none of them can climb. But Cato can, and he tries to go up, which he's from District 2. And after he falls down the tree because the branches are too heavy and too light for his weight, and Katniss knows that, so that's why she picked that specific tree. And Peeta suggests, why don't we just stay the night, and she has to come down eventually. And so they agree, and they just stay the night. And then Rue, from another tree, she calls out to Katniss, like, a little quietly, and then she points to the Tracker Jacker nest, which the bears basically bees, but they have a more poisonous sting when they sting you, and you get illusions and disillusions and all that when they get stung. And Katniss, basically, she cuts down the tree branch that has it on, and it falls onto the careers, which again is District 1 and District 2 and Peeta. And they get swarmed by all the Tracker Jackers, and so all of them run in the water. But one of them from District 1, the girl Glimmer, she gets attacked by a bunch, and then she dies, and she's all of her face and skin and arms are covered in all Tracker Jacker stings, and she dies from the pain. And Katniss jumps down and goes back goes a different way to get away from the careers. And after she runs, the head game maker, Seneca Crane, sends a fireball at her, and it burns her leg, and she's in pain, a bunch of pain. There's a whole burn inside her leg, and she doesn't know what to do. Because she was never a healer, only her mother was, and so she tries to recall what happens when it does, and she doesn't heal it, but she takes care of it. She puts water on it and everything. And after she starts making an alliance with Rue, who's a tiny girl from District 11, and which she only made the alliance because, one, she helped her, and two, she also reminds her of Prim. So, and they go together, and they make a plan to destroy the careers' food, because they have a big pile of food everywhere, and not everywhere, in one pile, and they took all the food from all districts and from the cornucopia, and they make a plan where Rue's gonna light a fire so the smoke will come out, and they'll go to the smoke to kill who's ever there, and then Katniss will go over and try to and she'll find a way to do it. She doesn't know how yet, but when they basically do the plan, there's this girl who she goes to, and she takes some food, and then she runs off. There's this redheaded girl. There was no name. Katniss nicknamed her Fox Face, and after Katniss realizes there's bombs on the ground because of the way the fox-faced girl was running. And so what she does is she takes an arrow and she cuts open and she makes an arrow fly to a bag of apples, which makes the apples fall out, and then they hit the mines, and all the food blew up, and then she also falls back a bit because of the bombs, and then after she does a little whistle note. That's their signal, because Mockingjays, if you sing a tune, they'll carry the tune to Mockingjay to Mockingjay, and so that's their signal if everything went right. And then she hears Rue scream her name, and she goes after it, and to see, and then Rue is stuck in one of the career's traps, and so she frees her, and then she comforts her, makes sure she's okay, and then Marvel from District 1, he throws a spear at Rue, and it injects her, and Katniss 2 seconds later takes her bow and arrow and shoots Marvel in the chest, and he dies. That's her first ever kill. And Rue dies in Katniss's arms, and Rue asks her to sing while she's dying. So Katniss sings for her, and after she buries her in flowers and puts flowers in her hands, and then Katniss cries because she was her friend and she reminds her of Prim. And so sponsors. So for this next part, sponsors are basically people who send you gifts for money. And District 11, which is Rue's home, sends her some bread, even though they're poor. But they want to say thank you for taking care of Rue at her last moments. And so after she settles down, takes a little rest, and then over speakers she hears a voice of Caesar Flickerman again, and what he says is there's been a rule change where 2 people can now win. If they're from the same district, those 2 people can win together. And without thinking, she screams out Peeta's name. And then she goes to run because she thought that was a stupid idea. Why would I scream his name? Because it's going to attract attention and I might get killed. And then she goes to the river where Rue last said she saw him. And then she goes, and then she almost steps on something that doesn't feel like a rock. And she looks down, and it's Peeta. And basically, what he does, he takes natural resources and painted himself to look like rocks. Because he's badly wounded, he couldn't fight. So he painted himself to look like rocks so he wouldn't be seen by anything. And she finds him, and then she uncovers him, and then she takes care of him. She takes him to the water, cleans him, takes care of his wound, and then they find a little cave where they stay in together. And Peeta confesses his feelings. He confesses when every day from school he would watch her walk home every single day, which honestly is a little weird, but it's true love for him, I guess. And Katniss, and then Katniss kisses him softly because he's coming down with a fever, and she's maybe falling in love with him. And then a sponsor comes down, and it's Haymitch saying, "That's all you got," and it has a pot of broth with it too. And then what she does, she brings it to Peeta, and then she feeds it to him, and then they do a little love, and then she does a love act. He thinks it's real. She's doing it act so they can both win. And they kiss, and they do stuff, and they get more stuff. And then Caesar Flickerman's voice comes over again saying, everything you need is in the middle. So there's a backpack with your name on it that has, or your district's name, and it has everything you need. And so Katniss drugs Peeta because he says don't go. And then she goes to the cornucopia and grabs the bag, but before she can go, Clover from District 2, she tries to stab her with a knife, and they fight. And then at the end, Clover's so close to killing Katniss, and then Thresh from District 11, Rue's not older brother, but friend a little bit, he smashes Clover's head with a rock, and he lets Katniss go because of Rue. That's the only reason. So if she was never with Rue, she would have probably died. But so she goes and brings the medicine back to Peeta, but she passes out, and she's in a pool of blood. And after, Peeta wakes up, and he's feeling so much better, and he takes care of Katniss now because she's not feeling good, and she has big cuts all over her face because of Clove. And now they're both better, and then they kiss, and then Haymitch sends a whole feast, not feast, but more food. And then they're both cured, and then they go out to hunt, but Peeta, he goes to collect berries because he's not good at hunting. He scares everything away. And then Katniss hears a cannon go off, and so she runs to Peeta to make sure he's okay. But she just sees his jacket and Nightlock. With Nightlock, if you eat one, you're dead. And she runs and calls out for his name, and then Peeta and her run into each other, and then she yells at him and says, "Peeta, those are Nightlock." And then he doesn't know what that is. He thought they were regular berries. And then what they do is they find the fox face. I guess she's has eaten the berries and she died. And they were thinking why, because she was so good at knowing where plants and berries were. So afterwards, they keep hunting, and then they hear someone scream in the distance, and then cannons go off, and it was Thresh who died. And after they go and they're chased by these mutts, which are their hybrids created by the Capitol of they're basically just dogs, mutts, and humans combined. It's really disgusting. And those mutts chase them to the cornucopia, where they go on the cornucopia and to find Cato already there. And Cato, he tries to kill Peeta. He has him in a headlock, and Katniss doesn't want to shoot him because she might accidentally hit Peeta. So what they do is Katniss and Peeta do a little signal, and then since Peeta's stronger than Cato, on the count of 3, Peeta punches Cato with his elbow, and and then she shoots him, and then he falls back with an arrow to his chest, and the Mutts devour him. They chew him up. It's unreeling. And at the end, it's daytime. The Mutts have left, and they slide down the cornucopia, and then Caesar Flickerman's voice comes to the thing, and he says, "But the rules have changed again. There's only one winner allowed." And then Peeta's like, "Come on, kill me. I know you want to." And then what Katniss said, she pulls out the Nightlock, which is the deadly berries, and she gives some to Peeta, and he's like, "No, don't." And then she's like, "Just trust me." And then they both hold it up to the mouth, and the second they put him to the mouth, Caesar Flickerman says, "Stop," and then he says, "We have the 2 victors of our 74th Hunger Games." And they weren't supposed to win. That's why President Snow doesn't really like them, because 2 weren't supposed to win. 1 were supposed to win, which changes like history and everything. And then Haymitch and Effie greet them on the train on the way back, and then they go to their district. And honestly, they're supposed to have a happy little after, but it's only like the next book you'll find what happens out. So I hope you liked it.